My name is Amy Bragg, and this is a little bit about my internship experience here in City. In terms of career and self-development, I think my biggest takeaway is my newly gained skills while utilizing Google Sheets. At school, I was trained in Excel, so there's a little bit of a learning curve when I started this internship. However, I've learned various shortcuts and workarounds for Google Sheets, which will definitely be useful in the future. I learned new functions and also further developed my data organization skills while creating a profit and loss analysis spreadsheet for my supervisor. I used charts and graphs to illustrate the data that I collected from various platforms so you can easily compare revenues and expenses monthly, yearly, and by platform. I also compiled data on how many customers were in attendance at each activity since January of 2022. I used graphs and charts so that he could see how attendance has fluctuated over the past year and a half. I also created a spreadsheet that organizes review data so he can see customer reviews based on activity. One thing that was difficult when I started this internship was the lack of communication between myself and my supervisor. I definitely had to learn very quickly that I needed to be assertive if there was a problem or if I had a question. I wasn't able to just sit around and wait for him to come help me. I had to go directly to him. The Forbes article, 3 Effective Ways to Advocate for Yourself, really helped me understand, but I needed to explain to my supervisor what I needed and how I wanted to be supervised. I think this is a very useful and valuable skill that I've gained because I think employers generally respect assertiveness, and I'm glad that I learned how to do that here. I'd used quite a bit of critical thinking and problem solving when it came to my position because not all of the skills that I learned in the classroom were transferable to what I was doing. For example, sometimes I would attempt to use a certain Excel function in Google Sheets and it wouldn't always work, so I would have to Google how to complete said process in Google Sheets. Sometimes the function would be totally different, and other times it would just vary a little. But I'm really glad that my internship required a lot of problem solving because I know that's not something that we're taught in the classroom anymore. I am used to very formal work environments back home, so coming into a more informal and a more friendly work environment was a little bit of a shock. However, after a few days, I really started to love the more informal style of work and being able to speak freely with my coworkers and not be in such a stressful environment. In terms of professionalism, I think what I've learned since being here is how much that word changes depending on where you are. Just because a workplace has a more informal environment doesn't make it any less professional than a workplace that has a more formal environment. One of the biggest things that I've learned about teamwork since being here is that you don't have to all be doing the same tasks to be on a team. For example, I was the only one in the office working on finances, but oftentimes I would ask Riley and Julie for advice or their opinion on something, even though they were both working on marketing. And I think that went both ways. Sometimes they would ask me for my opinion on a poster campaign that they were working on. And I think this type of team oftentimes works better when you're each doing different things because no one is in competition with anyone else. You're all just working towards bettering the company. Margaret Heffernan summed this idea up perfectly in her TED Talk. We're all more productive and we're more motivated when we're not all in competition with each other. In terms of equity and inclusion, I've learned how important it is to have an ethno-relative mindset rather than an ethnocentric mindset, according to Milton Bennett. I definitely started out here with a very ethnocentric mindset just because this is my first time being abroad without friends or family for an extended period of time. I think I was hit with a pretty big culture shock, and that turned me off of new ideas pretty quickly. However, after a few days of my internship, I learned to embrace these new ways of working and really take advantage of my time here in Sevilla. I spoke a little bit about this earlier, but I've learned a lot about technology since being here, especially because my job relies so heavily on technology. More specifically, though, I've learned a lot about the different functions and the different capabilities of Google Sheets since being here, which I know a lot of that knowledge will transfer back to Excel. I'm really glad that I got to continue to develop and use my data management skills this summer, and I'm sure that this practice will pay off in the future, not only for future careers, but also in my future classes back home at my home university. I talked about this a little bit in the leadership module, but one of the biggest things that I've learned about leadership is just how important it is to be kind to new people, especially when they're coming into a very new environment. I think the TED Talk by Drew Dudley really sums this idea up well. We all have the chance every day to create a lollipop moment for someone, and that all starts with kindness. I'm incredibly thankful for the girls that I got to work with who were from Sevilla because they were all so kind and welcoming to us and always willing to help us out if there was anything that we ever needed. I think this is the most important part of leadership, just simply being kind. Thank you.